The land of Canaan, once a promised inheritance, had become a place of profound oppression. For 40 years, the Israelites had known the bitterness of fear, their fields ravaged, their livestock stolen, their very lives held captive by the relentless hand of the Midianites. These nomadic tribes, swarming from the east like locusts, descended with a ferocity that left nothing but despair in their wake. Each year, as the harvest ripened, the Midianites and their allies, the Amalekites and the peoples of the east, would pour into the fertile valleys, their camels countless as the grains of sand, consuming and destroying all that the Israelites had painstakingly sown. The people of Israel, once a nation favored by the Most High, were reduced to hiding in caves and mountain strongholds, their spirits broken, their hope dwindling with each passing season. Their cries ascended to the heavens, a desperate plea for deliverance from the suffocating grip of their enemies. They had sown their fields, only to see the fruits of their labor devoured before their eyes. They had built their homes, only to watch them ransacked and burned. The very air seemed thick with the scent of defeat, a constant reminder of their subjugation. This was not merely a physical hardship, it was a spiritual desolation, a testament to a people who had strayed from their covenant and now reaped the bitter harvest of their disobedience. Yet, within this crucible of suffering, a flicker of divine remembrance was about to ignite, a testament to a God whose love, though tested by human failing, remained an unyielding beacon. The narrative that unfolds is not simply a recounting of battles won and enemies vanquished, but a profound exploration of how the seemingly insignificant can be chosen for extraordinary purpose, and how true strength is not measured in numbers or might, but in unwavering faith and absolute obedience to the divine will. It is a story that speaks to the human condition, to the moments when we feel overwhelmed by forces beyond our control, when our own capabilities seem woefully inadequate. It asks us to consider where we place our trust when the world around us crumbles, and whether we are willing to hear the whisper of God amidst the clamor of our fears. In the heart of this desolate period, in the small, unassuming town of Ophrah, lived a man named Gideon, a son of Joash, from the clan of Manasseh. Gideon was not a warrior, nor a leader of men. He was a farmer, a humble tiller of the soil, whose days were spent in the shadows of fear, not in the light of courage. He toiled in secret, a task that had become a perilous act of defiance. He threshed wheat in a winepress, a hidden place to shield his meager harvest from the ever-watchful eyes of the Midianites. The winepress, a place typically associated with the joyous abundance of the grape harvest, had become a symbol of his people's plight, a place of secrecy and scarcity, a stark contrast to the open fields where prosperity once flourished. His actions were not born of boldness, but of desperation, a quiet rebellion against the overwhelming power that held his nation captive. He was a man consumed by the present reality, haunted by the ghosts of past glories and weighed down by the crushing burden of present suffering. The stories of his ancestors, of their triumphs under God's guidance, must have felt like distant, faded dreams, utterly disconnected from the harsh realities of his daily existence. He saw the Midianites as an unstoppable force, their numbers vast, their presence suffocating. The thought of confronting them, of even daring to dream of freedom, seemed not only impossible but foolish. His world was one of hushed whispers and furtive movements, a life lived in the perpetual twilight of fear, where the open sky, once a symbol of God's expansive grace, now felt like a vast expanse of vulnerability. It was in this moment of profound despair, as Gideon labored in the hidden winepress, that the divine presence made itself known. An angel of the Lord appeared to him, a radiant figure whose very presence seemed to push back the shadows of fear that had long enveloped Gideon's life. The angel did not appear in a grand pronouncement or amidst a thundering display of power. Instead, the encounter was intimate, personal, and deeply unsettling for Gideon. The angel sat beneath the oak tree in Ophrah, a seemingly ordinary setting that was about to become the stage for an extraordinary encounter. Gideon, accustomed to invisibility, to living on the fringes of existence, was confronted by a visitor who saw him, truly saw him, in his hiddenness and his fear. The angel's greeting, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior," struck Gideon with a profound irony. Mighty warrior? He, who hid in a winepress to thresh his wheat. He, who trembled at the mere thought of the Midianites. The greeting was not a reflection of Gideon's current state, but a glimpse into the potential that the Lord saw within him, a potential that Gideon himself could not yet perceive. This was the call to adventure, delivered not with a trumpet blast, but with a word that challenged Gideon's entire self-perception. The angel's words were a seed of possibility, planted in the parched ground of Gideon's despair, a promise that even in the darkest of times, God's power could work through the most unlikely of individuals. This encounter was not just about delivering a message, it was about awakening a dormant spirit, about revealing a destiny that lay hidden beneath layers of fear and resignation. Gideon's immediate response was not one of eager acceptance, but of doubt and questioning. He voiced the collective lament of his people, articulating their deep-seated despair. "Sir," he replied, his voice tinged with the weariness of decades of oppression, "if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? Where are all his wondrous works that our fathers told us about, when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt?' But now the Lord has cast us off and given us into the hand of Midian." His words were a raw expression of a people who felt abandoned, whose faith had been eroded by relentless suffering. He articulated the logical disconnect between their belief in a powerful God and their current subjugation. It was a plea for an explanation, a cry for understanding in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. He was not yet ready to embrace the mighty warrior identity, for his reality was one of weakness and fear. His questioning was a natural human reaction, a struggle to reconcile the promises of God with the harsh realities of their present circumstances. It was a testament to the depth of their suffering, a suffering so profound that it had begun to eclipse their faith. The angel's pronouncement of divine support seemed to mock their current plight, and Gideon, acting as the voice of his people, needed to understand why. This was the refusal of the call, not a direct rejection, but an expression of profound doubt that needed to be addressed before he could even begin to consider the task ahead. The weight of generations of hardship pressed down on him, making the angel's words seem like a cruel jest. The angel, undeterred by Gideon's despondency, delivered a message of divine commission. "Go in this might of yours," the angel declared, "and deliver Israel from the hand of Midian. Have I not sent you?" This was not a suggestion, but a command, a direct mandate from the Lord. The angel's words were a powerful reassurance, a divine endorsement that transcended Gideon's self-doubt. The angel wasn't asking Gideon to become a mighty warrior, the angel was telling him that he was one in the eyes of the Lord, empowered by God's own might. This was the pivotal moment where the divine perspective began to challenge Gideon's limited human viewpoint. The angel's commission was clear and unambiguous, setting in motion the events that would lead to Israel's liberation. However, Gideon, still grappling with the immense scale of the task and his own perceived inadequacy, sought further confirmation, a tangible sign to bridge the gap between his doubt and the divine assurance. He recognized the enormity of the undertaking, the vastness of the Midianite forces, and his own solitary position. He needed more than just words, he needed a sign that would solidify his resolve and convince him that this was indeed God's will, not a figment of his own desperate hope or a divine deception. He was still standing at the threshold, hesitant to fully cross, needing a stronger push. Gideon, still wrestling with the weight of the angel's command, expressed his need for a sign. "Please show me a sign that it is you who speak with me," he pleaded. This request was not born of defiance, but of a deep-seated need for reassurance in the face of an almost insurmountable challenge. He was a man accustomed to the tangible realities of the earth, and the spiritual realm, though now undeniably present, still felt distant and uncertain. He needed something concrete, something that would anchor his faith and quiet the whispers of doubt that still lingered in his heart. The angel responded with a divine offering. Gideon prepared a meal, and as he brought it forth, the angel stretched out the staff in his hand and touched the meat and the unleavened bread. Fire sprang up from the rock, consuming the offering. Then, the angel of the Lord vanished from Gideon's sight. This was the sign, a miraculous display of divine power that left no room for ambiguity. The consuming fire, a symbol of God's presence and acceptance, was a powerful testament to the angel's divine origin and the authenticity of his message. Gideon, witnessing this extraordinary event, was overcome with awe and fear. He realized the profound truth of his encounter. He had seen God face to face, and yet, he was still alive. This realization marked a significant turning point in his spiritual journey, a moment of profound encounter that began to reshape his understanding of God and his own place within God's plan. The fear that gripped him was not the paralyzing fear of the Midianites, but a reverent fear of the Almighty, a recognition of the divine majesty. The encounter with the angel and the miraculous sign profoundly impacted Gideon. His fear began to transform into a dawning sense of purpose, fueled by the undeniable evidence of God's power and presence. He recognized that this was not merely a personal calling, but a divine mandate for the liberation of his entire people. The angel's parting words, "Peace be to you. Do not fear, you shall not die," were a balm to his soul, but the vision of God's power had instilled in him a new kind of awe, a reverent fear that would ultimately empower him. He understood that the strength required for this task would not come from him, but from the Lord of hosts. The immediate aftermath saw Gideon acting upon this newfound conviction. He built an altar to the Lord on that very spot, naming it, "The Lord is Peace," a testament to the transformative encounter and a declaration of his renewed faith. This act of worship was more than just a memorial, it was a public declaration of allegiance to God, a commitment to the divine path that lay before him. He was no longer just Gideon, the fearful farmer, he was becoming Gideon, the man chosen by God. The winepress, once a symbol of his hiddenness and fear, was now the sacred ground where his destiny was revealed. The seeds of courage, planted by the angel's words and watered by the miraculous sign, were beginning to sprout, preparing him for the trials that lay ahead and the incredible victory that awaited. The divine commission, once a source of paralyzing doubt, began to transform into a catalyst for strategic planning, albeit a plan deeply rooted in faith rather than military might. Gideon, now operating under the direct patronage of the Almighty, understood that a conventional confrontation with the vast Midianite host was not only impossible but contrary to the Lord's intended method of deliverance. The Midianites, numbering like the sand of the sea, encamped in the valley of Jezreel, their countless tents and the overwhelming presence of their camels creating an aura of invincibility. This was the crossing the threshold into a new reality for Gideon, a world where human logic and military strategy were superseded by divine instruction. He had stepped out of the winepress of his fear and into the open field of God's purpose, a field that appeared, to all human eyes, to be a death trap. The sheer scale of the enemy's presence was meant to serve as a stark contrast to the humble beginnings of God's intervention, emphasizing that victory would not be achieved through Israel's strength, but through God's power. This initial immersion into the enemy's overwhelming presence was designed to be a profound lesson in reliance, a stark reminder that human numbers and earthly power were ultimately insignificant in the face of divine intervention. Furthermore, the Lord began to reveal the unconventional nature of the impending campaign. The divine strategy was not to muster a vast army, but to systematically reduce Gideon's force. This paradoxical approach served a crucial purpose, to ensure that the glory of the victory would be unequivocally attributed to God, and not to any human prowess. The initial call for Israelite men to join Gideon resulted in a significant turnout, numbering 32,000. However, the Lord declared that this number was still too great. The first stage of discernment involved a public proclamation: "Whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return home." Consequently, 22,000 men, their hearts heavy with apprehension, turned back, their fear overriding any sense of national duty or divine calling. This initial culling was a testament to the Lord's discerning eye, sifting out those whose faith was not yet tempered to withstand the immense pressure of the conflict. It demonstrated that true service to God requires a resolute spirit, unburdened by debilitating fear. The departure of these men, though seemingly a setback, was a necessary step in refining the core group that would ultimately carry out God's will, ensuring that those who remained possessed a foundational level of courage, however nascent. Building on this, the process of further reduction continued, pushing Gideon and the remaining 10,000 men into a deeper reliance on divine guidance. The Lord then instituted a second, even more peculiar test, designed to further isolate those with unwavering commitment. The men were led to water, where they were to drink. The method of drinking became the distinguishing factor. Those who knelt down, cupping water in their hands to lap it like dogs, were separated from those who, in their alertness and vigilance, scooped water with their hands held to their mouths, their eyes remaining watchful of their surroundings. This seemingly minor distinction held profound significance. The men who lapped the water with their tongues, their faces pressed low to the ground, were indicative of a relaxed, perhaps even complacent, posture. Conversely, those who remained alert, scooping water while maintaining an upright and watchful stance, demonstrated a heightened state of readiness and awareness, even in the act of quenching their thirst. The Lord's selection criteria were not based on physical strength or combat experience, but on a subtle yet crucial indicator of a soldier's disposition, a constant state of vigilance. This process, designed to pare down the army to a mere 300 men, was not about diminishing Gideon's forces, but about concentrating the power of faith into a select, dedicated few. It was a profound lesson in discerning the true heart of a follower, identifying those whose spiritual alertness mirrored their physical readiness. Consequently, the divine selection narrowed the ranks from 10,000 to a mere 300. This minuscule force, armed with nothing more than trumpets, empty jars, and torches concealed within the jars, was to be Gideon's army. The strategic brilliance of this approach lay in its element of surprise and psychological warfare, orchestrated entirely by divine design. The Lord declared to Gideon, "With the 300 men that lapped I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand." This statement underscored the absolute certainty of divine intervention. The seemingly insignificant number of men was not a disadvantage but a testament to God's omnipotence. The unconventional weaponry, trumpets to create a deafening clamor, jars to conceal their lights, and torches to unleash a sudden, blinding illumination, was designed to sow confusion and terror among the vast, unsuspecting enemy. This was the approach to the inmost cave, not in a physical sense of entering enemy territory, but in the psychological and spiritual preparation for an act of faith that defied all human logic. Gideon was not to lead his men into a direct assault, but into a meticulously planned operation of deception and divine intervention, where the enemy's own numbers would become their undoing, amplified by the element of shock and awe delivered by a force that appeared to be everywhere at once. The overwhelming Midianite army, accustomed to predictable warfare, would be utterly unprepared for this divinely inspired tactic. Reflecting on this journey so far, we witness a profound unfolding of divine purpose, a narrative arc that transcends the ordinary. The echoes of Gideon's initial hesitation, his wrestling with the immensity of the task laid before him, resonate with a deep human truth. Yet, these very struggles, when met with an unwavering divine commission, begin to transmute into something far greater. The whispers of doubt, once a formidable barrier, gradually recede, replaced by a dawning understanding that true strength is not an inherent possession but a bestowed gift, a consequence of complete surrender. The narrative has guided us through moments where the perceived limitations of the human vessel stood in stark contrast to the boundless power of the divine will. It has illuminated how the very qualities that might seem like weaknesses in the eyes of the world, humility, a quiet disposition, even initial fear, can be precisely what the Almighty chooses to refine and employ for His extraordinary purposes. The path taken has illustrated a compelling principle, that the most significant transformations often stem from the most unexpected origins. We have observed how a singular encounter, a word spoken in a hidden place, can ignite a chain reaction that reshapes the destiny of a nation. The implications of such divine selectivity are far-reaching, suggesting that every individual, regardless of their perceived stature or circumstance, holds the potential to be an instrument of profound change when aligned with a higher calling. The journey has underscored the transformative power of obedience, not as a passive compliance, but as an active, courageous engagement with the divine. It is in this active yielding, this willingness to step beyond the boundaries of personal comfort and conventional wisdom, that the seeds of remarkable outcomes are sown and nurtured. The narrative has meticulously demonstrated how surrender and strategic action, when guided by divine insight, can dismantle seemingly insurmountable obstacles, revealing a wisdom that far surpasses human understanding. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider the cumulative effect of these unfolding revelations. The fragments of Gideon's story, once disparate elements of struggle and faith, now coalesce into a potent tapestry. Each trial, each sign, each reduction in numbers, has served not as a mere plot point, but as a crucial thread weaving a more intricate and profound understanding of divine methodology. The narrative has consistently pointed towards a singular truth, that the grandest victories are often orchestrated through means that defy human expectation, emphasizing that ultimate reliance rests not on earthly might, but on an unwavering trust in the unseen hand that guides and empowers. The anticipation builds as we approach the culmination, not for a simple recounting of events, but for the profound realization of what these interwoven threads signify for enduring faith and the enduring power of divine intervention in the face of overwhelming odds. The journey has prepared us to grasp the full weight of the ultimate takeaway, the enduring legacy of a victory won not by the sword, but by the Spirit. As the 300 men, armed with their unconventional instruments of divine strategy, crept through the moonlit darkness, a palpable tension hung in the air, thicker than the desert night. This was not the tense anticipation of a soldier preparing for a bloody clash of steel, but the electrifying calm of a people about to witness the impossible. The Midianite camp, a sprawling expanse of tents and slumbering warriors, lay vulnerable, a testament to their overconfidence, their vast numbers lulling them into a false sense of security. Gideon, positioned at the edge of the enemy's awareness, raised his trumpet, its simple form an emblem of the humble tools God often chooses. The single, clear note that pierced the silence was not just a signal for his men, it was a declaration, a sound that echoed the breaking of chains, the shattering of despair, and the undeniable presence of a power far greater than any earthly army. Then, in a breathtaking crescendo, the night erupted. 300 trumpets blared in unison, a deafening roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. Simultaneously, the hidden torches within the jars flared to life, transforming the darkness into a disorienting inferno. The empty jars, once symbols of the people's scarcity, now served as vessels of light, their sudden brilliance blinding and terrifying the slumbering host. The Midianites, jolted from their sleep by the cacophony and the blinding light, were thrown into utter chaos. In the confusion, they mistook their own comrades for enemies, their vast numbers turning against them in a panicked melee. The divine plan, executed with precision and unwavering faith by Gideon and his meager band, had unfolded with spectacular success. The enemy, so formidable in their numbers, crumbled not under the force of human arms, but under the sheer weight of divine intervention, a testament to the Lord's power to save through the few, the faithful, and the strategically guided. The battlefield, moments before a symbol of Israel's helplessness, became a monument to God's omnipotence. The aftermath was not a scene of triumphant looting or vengeful pursuit, but a profound testament to the nature of God's deliverance. The Israelites, having witnessed the miraculous rout of their oppressors, did not seize the spoils of war with greedy hands. Instead, they stood in awe, their hearts filled with a reverence that transcended the thrill of victory. The Midianites, their pride shattered and their armies decimated, fled in disarray, leaving behind a land finally free from decades of tyranny. Gideon, the once fearful farmer, stood not as a conquering hero reveling in his own might, but as a humble servant who had obeyed the divine command. His victory was not his own, it was the Lord's. This profound understanding, the core message woven through every trial and every divine sign, is that true strength is not found in numbers, in earthly power, or in strategic brilliance alone, but in absolute trust and unwavering obedience to the Almighty. The story of Gideon and his 300 is a timeless reminder that when we feel weakest, when our circumstances seem most daunting, it is then that God's power can be most fully revealed through us. The true practice begins now, to embrace our own perceived limitations not as barriers, but as sacred spaces where divine power can be unleashed, to trust that even the smallest act of faith, when aligned with God's will, can bring about extraordinary, world-altering victories. The legacy of Gideon is not merely a historical account of a battle won, but an enduring testament to the transformative power of surrendered faith.